I think we are live. Fingers crossed. Let me know if you can hear me. Hello, hello, and welcome. Apologies for the delayed uh, start. Technology is not my friend, and the stream was being a pain in the ass. But I think I figured it out. Let me know if you all can hear me in the chat so that we can get started. And I know that I'm not, just talking into the void. You're loud and clear, says Asa. Hello and welcome to each and every one of you. Glad that you could be joining me on this fine Sunday evening before New Year's Eve. I'm so excited to have you all here. Thank you for spending your Sunday night with me. I'm really honored by all that. Let's just first catch up. This is a very loose hangout. It's really designed to be a community event for us all to just get together, chat, commiserate, maybe do a little bit of astrology, and when I say a little bit of astrology, it's going to be a lot of astrology. Hello and welcome to each and every one of you. Hello to Anna. Hello to Leo, the shining star. Hello to Michelle Kraft, to Jackie, to Popcorn Peepaws. I think that's hilarious. What's good says when the stars rejoice. Rafine says hi. Hello, Rafine. Badar says hi. Samantha the astrologer says hello. Madeline says hi. Go Hillary says we have a lot of people here today. Almost 45 people, which is quite surprising. It's Callie Fish says hello. Tiamat says hello. Loyeni says hello. Mobile Bempe. Oh, okay, I think that's all. That's a clever. Hello, hello. And Oscar is there, of course, our iconic, legendary poet. Uh, Channelo, Channel of Awesomeness is also here, and Neo Shin Wolf. Welcome to each and every one of you. Hello, Dusk. Glad to see all you. Some familiar faces, some new faces. Keon says hello. Welcome to each and every one of you. Glad that you could join us here. Let's start first with some fun updates. If anyone has anything interesting they'd like to share, please feel free to put it in the chat and I will also shout it out on the live stream. This is a chance for you to showcase anything cool that you've done that you want this community to know about. If any of you have open reading slots, for example, this is a good time to share. Or if you have upcoming events that maybe you want us to promote, feel free to put it in the chat and we will shout it out. This is, again, a community hour. It's really designed to support all of you here, not just talk about the astrology, which is fun, but also if you've got something going on, shine a little bit. Let us applaud you. Or if you want readings for January, let us know and we will send people your way. Dusk says hello. Bodhi Mindful, we made it to the end of 2025. Yes, we did. Everyone give yourself a pat on the back. That in of itself is like a, you deserve an award because what a year it has been. It's been surreal for real. Akil says, howdy, doctor. Hello, Akil. How are you doing? Astropant says, I love the holiday time when we can all be together. I do love the holidays as well for that reason. Shabi Yalda was just recently, and I got a chance to have some pomegranate seeds. I have a whole bowl of pomegranate seeds waiting for me. I realize now that I'm actually quite hungry. I forgot to eat yesterday. And so I'm going to be chowing down on some pomegranate seeds afterwards. Rafine says, hi, Oscar. Let's see here. Finished my 88th novel of the year, also open for astrology readings. First of all, congratulations on 88 novels. I love that. That is phenomenal. I'm promote novel reading as much as you can. And 88 is great. Michelle is taking readings, so if anyone is interested, definitely check out Michelle there. Michelle, you also do geomancy, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like people can come to you for geomancy, if I remember. Asa also says proudly promoting Astro by Max astrology course beginning January 3rd. Yes, this is a good reminder. For those of you who don't know, I'm not sure. I don't think Blaze is here today. But Blaze is one of our regulars here on the channel on the Patreon, but also a quite skilled astrologer in their own right. They have a course coming up January 3rd. If you're interested, you can go to astrobymax.com and I think /learn. It'll be there. And they're going to be they're going to be going over Abu Mashar's Kitab al-Mudkhal, which is his greater introduction. That text is designed to be done in a collective fashion. It was never meant to be read as a textbook. It's meant to be something that is communicated. Even the way the Arabic is written, if for those of you that are Arabic speakers can probably attest to this, there's a rhythm to the way that the Arabic is written. It's designed for certain passages to be memorized. So like the way in which the planets are described is very clearly designed to be memorized in the Arabic. It's very clear in that regards. And so having someone who understands the cosmology, but also the methodology, go over the book would be incredibly useful. So I highly recommend this course. It would be, if you're looking for a foundation in astrology, this is what you need. Abu Mashar's text is the foundation of astrology. It also is so interesting because, one, Abu Mashar is, if he can use 10 words instead of one, he's going to use 10 words instead of one. So it requires a little bit of someone to help you guide. But also, there's a debate about whether it's actually a book on natal astrology or general astrology, because he technically starts to end with the lots, and the lots are used in natal astrology the way that he presents them. So it is the foundation for all astrology, but in particular natal. So if you're interested, definitely check out that course by Astro by Max, and I think it's like 12 weeks or something. It's like a pretty in-depth course and quite affordable for what's being covered there. So definitely check that out. Let's see who else. Someone else's. Thank you. Yes, I do geomancy, says Michelle. Definitely check out the geomancy. I'm always trying to promote geomancy a little bit. Underrated divination system, and we do it much better here in the Islamic system, if I may say so myself, in comparison to Western geomancy. Jackie says, shout out to Max, Oscar, and Anna. I've had an amazing experiences with them. Yes, brilliant astrologers there. We have Mahira says, I'm just learning geomancy. Oh, that's very exciting. Avianto, hello, watching this live and enjoying my breakfast. Where are you coming from, Avianto? Maybe somewhere else? We're nighttime, as you can tell by the darkness in my house. Sharina says Shireen says first time here but long time follower. So excited to catch a live. Very much a January baby 5th. So it's your birthday in a few days. Happy birthday to you. That's very exciting. Welcome and happy birthday to you. I'm waving my hand limply after one hell of an 8th house perfection year. Oh no, Hillary. Having seen a friend's 8th house perfection year, I can just say they're very rough. Asa says, also proudly vouching for Oscar, Anna, the two Annas, there are two Annas there, and Michelle as incredible scholars and diviner. They are brilliant scholars and diviners, and everyone here is. Like, I'm very proud of this little community that we've all gotten together. Asa, who's very kindly uplifting everyone else, is probably one of our learned experts in our community as well. So credit to Asa where credit is due there. Just want to say how much I love the recent drop in wealth and abundance, says Bodhi. Oh, I'm so glad Avianto's coming from Indonesia. Hello. I've always wanted to go to Indonesia and Malaysia. The only reason I haven't is the heat. So I need to find a time when it is not so hot, because everyone keeps saying, you got to come to Indonesia, you got to come to Indonesia. I will. I promise, if I can figure out when it's not so hot, because I melt. I may be Middle Eastern, but this is an Arctic camel we're talking about here. Curly Girl says, just started the Patreon page called Astrology? Art Astrology. Oh, interesting. Want to start a community where we can take a look at the chart shows, how the chart shows the art. Oh, this is very cool. Okay, so Curly Girl has started a Patreon page called Art Astrology, where they're going to look at the chart that shows the art. This is very cool. Can you drop the link in the chat, the Patreon link in the chat for people who are interested? Or I guess you could just Google art astrology and it should come up, or art astrology Patreon and it might come up. But if it brings up, that's a really cool bit there. Let's see here. Are we going to do greetings from Indonesia? Hello, hello. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Guna, first time live, long time follower. Love it. I love it. Was it first, what did they call that? Long time listener, first time caller. Are you taking geomancies tonight, Akil? I won't. If we have time, I'll try, but I don't think we'll do geomancy today. Shout out to Anna who actually sent me an email. By the way, if I'm have an email, I promise you I'll get to you. I'm doing 35 a day. So by the end of this week, I should be all cut up with the backlog. That doesn't count the new ones that have come in the month of December. But by the end of this week, I should have gotten to everyone. Trying to do 35 a day. But Anna sent an email, and I promise I will respond back, Anna, where they recommended a technology that I'm going to try out first. And if it works out, then we're going to do geomancy. But we will definitely do a geomancy live. I'm going to have one where I just take geomancy readings and we're going to demo them. I want to release a couple more translations, though, because I want to showcase a couple really cool techniques about timing. And then I'm going to show you how that timing works via a live. So that's my goal. Is I have my 2026 already planned out. But we have a translation on timing coming up, not immediately, but pretty soon. And then I'm going to follow it up with a Geomancy Live. So we will do a whole Geomancy Live. But if we have time today, I might take one. I have the old setup still here, so we'll check it out. My Malaysian friends always used to tell me that Malaysia is very, very temperate. Maybe I shall check out Malaysia. That's what I want to check out. Maybe we'll go Malaysia first, and then we'll go to Indonesia. So it'll be a stepping stone there. Robert says, can't wait for more geomancy translations. Oh yeah, there we have some good ones. I haven't even scratched the surface on geomancy. This is the last thing I'll say before we'll get started. We have timing coming up, and then we have subcharts. So one of the cool things in Islamic geomancy that just doesn't exist in the Western world is you create charts from charts. So you get these smaller charts based off of a very unique calculating technique, and that allows you to dig deeper. So you know how everything in geomancy is about getting more details. You confirm if someone is doing an evil eye on you, and then you go and you find out who that person is based off of the description, what they've done to you by combining the figure of the 12th house with the judge. There's a technique that then allows you to dig deeper by creating a new chart based off of the original chart, a new tableau. And then the new tableau can do things like tell you people's names. It can tell you things like directions for where things are lost. It can tell you the way that an illness the trajectory of the illness. So a person will get sick over 6 weeks and then they'll recover on week 7. It's really, really in depth. And those subcharts are very unique to the Islamic world, where you're not going to really find it anywhere. So we're going to start first with timing and then start to flesh out the elemental correspondences and then move into the subcharts. So we've got some really cool things coming up for you in that regards. Dusk says, I'm new to the Patreon, but I've already absorbed so much as a root worker and Nganga. Nganga is a priest of the Congolese tradition, West African tradition, and astrologer. It's been a blessing to connect to the Islamic and African practices from your lessons. Grateful for you. Well, I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful for you, Dusk, and so glad to have you. Are these the Tasakin, says Akil? Yes, we're going to get into those Tasakin. All right, let's start talking a little bit about the astrology of 2025, and then we'll talk about the astrology of 2026. So we'll do a quick review. I'll pause every once in a while to take some questions. I love to hear from all of you, so feel free to jump in. For those of you that make it to the end, I'm going to give you a seal known as the Seal of Sustenance, which is designed to protect you from poverty and bring in wealth. It's supposed to, quote unquote, expand the capacity for wealth, is how it's described. So I'm going to teach you how to make this particular seal at the end as a treat for hanging out. So first, let's talk about 2025, because what a clusterfuck of a year was it, right? I always feel bad because the year was actually personally quite good for me. It was just what a disastrous year internationally, right? So we knew it was significant for a couple reasons. Right off the bat, when you cast the Aries Ingress chart, and for those of you that are new, the Aries Ingress chart is the most important a world astrology technique. What you do is you cast a horoscope for the exact moment in which the sun enters Aries, known as the Aries Ingress, the solar new year, or the vernal equinox. For those of you that come from the Persian tradition, you will know that that is also Nowruz, one of the major festivals. And in fact, in the Abbasid period, they would do this as a whole celebration. So you would they put out these massive tables with fruits and sugared fruits and nuts and various sherbets and roses and flowers and all sorts of beautiful decorations, eventually becoming known as the Haftseen, 7 S's. So things like sear, garlic was often placed on these sinjit, also placed on these tables. And as they were celebrating and reciting poetry, the court astrologer, having done all the calculations beforehand, would then arrive, bow before the Khalif in the more later periods where the Khalif takes on a more a symbolic kingly role. They actually quite literally touch the feet of the Khalif. This would still happen in the Indic tradition. It doesn't happen in the Western Islamic world. So in Al-Andalus, they don't do that. It's a little too, in Sufism, you do that, but you generally are careful with kings because you don't want the king to think of themselves as a mini god. But in the Abbasids, some of them did. Musta'in, for example, wanted his astrologers to touch his feet, but they bow, they sort of touch the ground, and then they give the horoscope. And the horoscope was long. It was an actual book that was written that covered the entirety of the year. They were known as the almanacs of the year, that included everything from these are the major predictions to where we are in the timeline of historical astrology to what are the sacred months. Everything was calculated there. Even things like weather showed up in these almanacs. So we foresee that during the month of Ramadan, it's going to be an excessively rainy month. All of that was included. And so the primary tool was the sun's ingress into Aries. These almanacs, in many ways, lay out all of the techniques of world astrology. None of them get translated into the Latinate world, and so they're effectively missing. So the Latinate world has the theory, but never the practice. And I've been recreating these almanacs as a way of showcasing what these people did, but also as a way of hopefully you all taking on these practices, and you can see what you can, what was available for you as world astrologers yourselves. So you cast the horoscope for when the sun enters into Aries or ingresses into Aries. You calculate the horoscope based off of what is known as the hegemon, or the center of the hegemon. This is usually today understood as capitals, but they're not exclusively so because they do shift. And there are instances where a horoscope will be cast for multiple cities. So after the collapse of the Abbasid dynasty, we know that they would cast their horoscopes for Cairo, Isfahan, and Delhi. These would be the 3 new capitals of the Islamic world. For today, the hegemon still remains arguably Washington, D.C. And we will talk about when that may change in the future. Once you cast the horoscope for Washington, D.C., then you can cast the horoscope for your location itself. So I'm based in Southern California, so I would cast it for Los Angeles, so basically the major city nearby. Whenever you cast the horoscope, you always want to pay attention, of course, to the sign that is rising. Whenever the sign that is rising is the same sign as the horoscope of the Great Conjunction, which was Scorpio, or is the sign of the conjunction itself, which is Aquarius, it indicates what's known as a year of a pivot, or the pivotal year. It is a year, and many of the themes of the Great Conjunction will then manifest itself in that year. And so right off the bat, when I did 2025 and I saw that Aquarius was rising, that indicates that many of the themes of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius would play out in 2025. And so all predictions, all interpretations have to be filtered through that framework. So as I was going through the almanac in 2025, I had to keep going back. Okay, so the major themes are corruption of waters, ecological disasters, the tensions between orthodoxy and heresy, the fungibility of borders, the treatment of the stranger, the fragmentation of the imperial core, and the rise of the periphery, and the shift of the imperial hegemon. Those are the sort of major themes. And so every interpretation has to be filtered through that. So whenever I would look at, for example, Saturn and Pisces, I would go, okay, well, how does this relate back to the Jupiter Saturn conjunction? Or when I look at Mars in Cancer, I would go back, well, what does this have to do with the Jupiter Saturn conjunction? And this is an incredibly important tool. It helps to fine tune those predictions so that you're not just looking at these Aries ingresses floating on their own, but you put them within a timeline. And that timeline is incredibly important. For those of you that saw my NORWAC talk this past year, or was at the Astro Salon talk. Astro Labs is something else. The Astro Salon talk, you'll note that this is something that I bring up a lot, this idea of creating a timeline and then making those predictions there. And so there were some big predictions that I made, and I'm going to go over them really briefly. I don't want to like bore everyone. And then I'll talk about some of the big misses that were there, and I want to identify them. So this year was more accurate than previous years, which is, great. That means we're fine tuning the technique. One of the major predictions, and I believe I may have been the only one, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the only ones that talked about the bombing of Iran, or the potential bombing of Iran, is what I talked about, is the bombing of Iraq, Iran, and Yemen, and the helping of Israel to do so was one of the sort of big predictions. And of course, that horrifically came true, the so called 12-day war, which is really a horrific thing to say, but we saw this very clear war of aggression against Iran. Whatever you feel about the brutal theocracy of Iran, and we can rightfully call it out, you don't get to bomb sovereign nations. That was pretty significant. Of course, the United States also worked with Israel to bomb Yemen in multiple instances until finally reaching some sort of ceasefire. That was tied to the ongoing theme, is that we would see a shift in the warfare in Gaza and the genocide in Gaza to a different register, and sort of stopping and starting. And that seems to also have come true. The ceasefire that is not a ceasefire is a very real manifestation of that, in which you've gone from an outright genocide to a lower grade acting of massacre by either refusing to allow food, water, shelter in, but also carrying out more targeted strikes, going from killing 200 people a day to killing 50 people a day type of thing. So this is tied to this ongoing greater conjunction, but also the war cycle. And being able to put it within that timeline helps you understand how these things are going to continue to sort of percolate, bubble up, and then eventually burst out again in the 2030s. All right, Pope Leo coming into play was my favorite turn of the event. Would you consider him related to Orthodoxy? Yeah, Pope Leo is quite interesting. I may do a review of Pope Leo. There's another Astrology of Religions coming up where I go over in depth some of the methods, but I may do another sort of review, like a live session where we review. And so far, the predictions of Pope Leo during my video demo of his appointment has pretty much come on point. There is one that's off. I indicated that he would reintroduce sort of Marian devotion, and it doesn't seem like he's done this so far, though. Shout out to Robert, who's pointed out that he himself seems to have a very close connection to Mary. But from what we can see, as institutionally, he hasn't really done anything there. But he has turned out to be very clearly the Labour Pope. He has very clearly taken a very harsh stance on AI, which is really interesting because it was like a random. I didn't think it was going to be a thing, but it really did turn out like AI is the thing that he's really focusing on. Labor is the thing that he's focusing on. Taking a sort of a more managing the sort of state of war, both with the Trump administration, Ukraine, and Gaza, all seem to be playing a role. Really cementing Francis's legacy. In fact, he did something interesting where we said there was going to be a change around LGBTQ rights, and that's come out too. He's kept Pope Francis. He himself is much more conservative on LGBTQ rights than Francis was. If you see his previous statements, he's actually more conservative in that regard. But he kept Francis's policy of allowing some level of blessings to be done for a queer individual. So he himself has changed, and he's in the same way has maintained a sort of or fixed, and that's because the horoscope was fixed. He's fixed the policies set forth by Francis. So far quite good, but we'll definitely be revisiting that as well. Go Hillary says, Sir Alomi, just Ali is fine. Does this mean you can also assess how the year will go for other capital cities? Yes. So you start with Washington to understand what's going on with the world, and then whatever your capital is, Beijing or Tokyo, you would then bring in Beijing or Tokyo. So you look at Washington to understand the imperial hegemon. Since the United States still dominates the global stage, even though there's pushback there, we would use Washington as the primary horoscope. So you would take the 2026, and I'll show you in a second, the 2026 horoscope for Washington, and then you would cast the same horoscope, Aries Ingress for Beijing or Tokyo, and compare the two. Take the primary imperial themes and apply it locally. And this is one way to understand, for example, what your country needs to do or how it's going to handle the imperial reality. So, like, the tariffs, all the sort of tariffs and trade issues can really be understood when you do the Washington horoscope and then you add in the Beijing horoscope. And it does a really, really good job of highlighting how that nation or empire or country or people will navigate the imperial reality. The year long, Bodhi says, the year long U.S. bombing of Somalia behind the scenes and the recent Israel recognition of Somaliland as a place to send the Palestinians is a sinister end to the year, to say the least. Absolutely. So this is one of the theaters of war that I've mentioned in the past that almost nobody's paying attention to, but the African theater of war is huge. A few years ago, people were like, oh, the Biden administration and the Trump administration, they ended the war with ISIS. But what no one has pointed out is that they shifted from bombing Syria and Iraq to bombing places like Chad, Somalia, and of course, just recently, Nigeria, right? Like they just bombed Nigeria, and it turned out there was no ISIS militants that were killed in it. It was just ordinary people in Nigeria. But also in places like Somalia, the recognition of that is tied to the fungibility of borders, fragmentation. This is a major theme of it. In fact, I think one of the things I mentioned in the 2020 horoscope is, quote, the shifting of borders. So the recognition of Somaliland is an example of that. So always pay attention in the way in which the bigger themes manifest themselves. Of course, the treatment of the stranger. The horoscope is, of course, Aquarius was this the sign of the stranger, ice in particular. One of the interesting things that I mentioned, and there's a bunch here that I won't really go into. You can go through it. Was the rise of the sort of plutocrats and whatnot, but specifically, I really want to pat myself on the back on that. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I really want to highlight this one because I thought it was really interesting how the Lot of Dominion works. So the Lot of Dominion helps you understand policy. What you do is you take the distance from Jupiter to Saturn and then you project it from the ascendant. So you go from Jupiter to Saturn and then you project from the ascendant, which would put the Lot of Dominion in Scorpio, putting the ruler of that lot as this fallen Mars in Cancer. And so, one of the things that I said is that we would see a militarization of our society, the rise of unqualified people to military positions or unqualified candidates, a powerful, quote, powerful armed force ready to wreak devastation and new positions. And it was like one of those really interesting, like I threw it in there and like, I wonder if this thing is going to actually come true because a lot of Dominion really tries to get to what's going on behind the scenes policy wise. And what happened in 2025 is one, he appointed CEOs to military positions. They brought in new commanders and leaders that were wholly unqualified. He militarized ICE into basically his personal police force. ICE isn't just targeting immigrants, which in of itself is also horrific. ICE is deliberately targeting those people that have been politically outspoken. So it is his personal private militaries, private police there, his secret police. But then he actually said the words that he's going to create a ready force that is ready to attack at any moment, right? In addition to his renaming of the Department of Defense and the Department of War, he created a ready force. So it was interesting that like the words were almost identical to the almanac. And that's an example of how the astrology can sometimes be really, really literal. So how did I come to that conclusion? And I wanted to show this to you all so that you can make similar predictions in your own interpretations. Because the lot falls in Scorpio, Scorpio governs generally sorcerers, sailors, blacksmiths, and a bunch of other figures, but also clerics, but also soldiers, and particularly commanders of soldiers. The Abbasids had a tendency that they would only promote generals when the horoscope was Scorpio. So they would actually wait until the horoscope was Scorpio, and then they would promote someone to the rank of general or emir. And this was one of their habits, one of their elections. And so Scorpio has always had a connection, not just with the military, but promotions within the military. So you would go, okay, since the lot is there, that indicates promotion, and it's in the 10th house, so promotions to leadership positions in the military. But since Mars has fallen in the 6th house, and the 6th house includes, that would be anyone that is unqualified. So you would go unqualified people to positions of the military. That's how you would make that very literal interpretation, by using the lot of dominion. And you can do this. We're actually going to practice it together for 2026. So just hold off. We're going to look at 2026 together, and we're going to actually practice it so that you can see how this sort of technique works. But that was one of the more interesting ones that we saw in terms of prediction. So really the prediction of the bombing of Yemen and the bombing of Iran. As far as I can tell, I think it was the only one who mentioned that. The appointment of these new positions within the military and a ready strike force. I mean, there may be of other ones, so I could be wrong in that regards. But they were really stood out in terms of the almanac, really sort of hitting the point there. There was another really interesting one, but it was kind of minor. I threw it in there, and that was the stripping of funds to schools. Specifically, I said private institutions and schools, private universities. This is where it's really important that when you start to make world predictions, to familiarize yourselves with basic civics and economy. The state funds most public schools. And so public schools, surprisingly for now, have been relatively safe. If you're in a public school in a blue state, there hasn't been a lot of direct targeting. It's there, like UCLA took a hit, but not nearly to the degree that Princeton, Harvard, Georgetown, these universities took. Why? Because those are private institutions, and private universities rely on donors and major grants, partnership grants with the government. And so he was able to take a big swing at Harvard, and of course we saw that he did that using anti-Semitism as a weapon. To be clear, anti-Semitism is a vile form of racism, and we should reject it and fight vigorously against it wherever we find it, while also recognizing the way in which the state has used it to sort of browbeat universities like Harvard in that regard. Harvard is not institutionally anti-Semitic. Harvard is like it's a little mini training camp for the government and the military. There are little sociopaths at Harvard end up in the government, right? So I thought that was quite interesting. So enough saying of what I got wrong. Let me mention a couple of the things that I got wrong, and let's move on to 2026. There was one that I really thought was going to come true, but it just didn't. And because of Aquarius rising, Aquarius governs mud, specifically the mud that is on the shorelines and the digging in them. And so, in terms of professions, grave diggers, builders, but specifically builders that dig the ground. So they're the ones that actually make the canals. They're the ones that actually dig for you to put your foundation stones. That's generally governed by Aquarius. And Aquarius has historically been linked to oil. I have found personally. In the past, it was the digging of the ground, the digging within for precious metals. But I have found since the finding of oil in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, the Aquarius has had a very strong connection with oil. And so when I saw the horoscope here with that Saturn in Pisces in the 2nd house of resources, Pisces, Saturn corrupting the waters of Pisces, I made a leap to say that there would be new offshore drilling for oil. From what I can tell, that hasn't happened yet. I may have missed the news, but I haven't seen anything pop up on my feed regarding that. That may come true. We still have a couple months. We have 2 more months left of the year, so it may come true. But for now, that I'm gonna remark that as a miss. It's my biggest miss of the year of 2025, and so I'm gonna have to revisit that a little bit and see what I got wrong. The logic seems to be right. Sometimes you just miss the astrology there, or maybe it's some other form of digging that's happening that I'm not aware of. But offshore drilling, was one of my big misses. I'm going to have to revisit this in 2026. A bit of a bummer, but I can say that in the past, historically, Aquarius with this sort of configuration where Saturn is in some type of water sign or Saturn has some type of share over water or land has generally indicated some type of drilling of some sort. And it has been tied to oil. In fact, some of the horoscopes of Saudi, maybe I'll do the discovery of oil in some regards in that to take a look at that. But yeah, that was one of my big misses. Uh, 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 Borkel says, Borkel Wampus. I love that name. Borkel Wampus. A lot of war going on in the Horn of Africa for the last few years. Yeah, it's one of those criminal, like, if we weren't so institutionally racist, this would be in the news like every single day. The United States has been bombing nonstop in Chad and in Somalia for at least 6 to 7 years now, almost a decade. We've just been bombing them, and it's not a major. There's no major discussion about this. It's one of my big frustrations in my class. I teach a history of the Middle East class. I always talk about this. I go, the war on terror never ended. The war on terror shifted from the Middle East to Africa, and we've been bombing Africa. Like, there was this fucking graphic recently that showed how Biden administration's drone usage dropped dramatically, but that's because they only included Afghanistan and Iraq. It fucking pissed me off because I'm like, he stopped droning Afghanistan and then he started droning Chad. Like it's just an example of like the deep institutional racism of our media that nobody is talking about this. And like, it's one of those frustrations that I have anyways. But thank you for pointing that out. Tiamat says, your prediction for the large double-bodied slings of Mars protest during April was very on point. Do you have any idea why George Floyd was such a big retaliation point this year? Yeah. So this is a great, thank you for bringing that up. So what we're seeing with the slings of Mars and also in the Almanac, this cracking down of protesters, is that now that the right is somewhat triumphant, they have all three branches of government technically, right? One of the in parts of their long-term plan, and this is where the right is far more organized than the left ever is they have a long-term vision. And one of their long-term visions throughout 2020, from the moment that Trump lost to the moment that he won again, was to retaliate against protesters to ensure that BLM, Me Too, because those two came together, BLM, Me Too, COVID restrictions, and the protests around Palestine could never be a viable political movement again. And so what you needed to do is fragment, attack. And so what did they do? They attacked DEI, Code for Racism. I'm the number one critic of DEI. I think the liberal institute, co-opting of representational politics, not identity politics, representational politics, is a way to paper over structural racism. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just don't stop. It's not enough for you to have one black CEO and go, okay, we've solved racism. You start with saying, okay, we'll have a black CEO, and then you dismantle the institutions of racism that ensure that the one black CEO is a big deal. Like the fact that we've only had one black president is an insane thing for me. The fact that we have never had a female president, a woman president is insane, right? We should have moved past the firsts, right? Like we're in the 21st century and we're still doing the firsts. And that is a problem. But the government took an opportunity to tackle all the DEI stuff, tackle all the opportunities for organizing. One of the things that they're doing is sort of attacking funding. So if you've ever donated to BLM or any of these movements, that's what they're focusing in on right now. Why they're doing that is because they understand that they don't have popular legitimacy. And so the only way to ensure that if you can't have popular legitimacy is to break the sources of popular movements. That way you can create effectively a corrupt government in which a select few elites keep getting into power and putting in policies that are fundamentally unpopular. Like the whole attack on trans people is an example of this. You were led to believe, complete lie, and the Democrats adopted this. Fuck the Democrats for doing this, by the way. They jumped on the bandwagon after they lost the election. Oh, maybe we need to take a moderate approach on trans rights. What is the moderate approach on trans rights? Trans people aren't asking you to force people to become trans. They're asking for basic recognition. That is the moderate stance. Like it's weird how what moderate gets defined as access to basic healthcare, access to basic dignity. That's too extreme. That's the moderate stance. But all of them were like, oh, we've gone too far, we've gone too far. The right immediately attacks it. But then when you actually look at the surveys, a survey just came out that showed that the vast majority of Americans, over half, recognize trans women as women. It's one of those things where they know that their policies are unpopular. The vast majority of people don't want you to take away healthcare from trans people. They want you to make groceries affordable. They want you to make rent affordable. But since they know they can't win because they're unpopular, you have to attack the movements themselves. And so that's why there was that serious retaliation against all things George Floyd. It's a way of symbolically breaking that movement. So remove his monuments, remove recognition, attack BLM, take away recognition of black soldiers and black veterans in our archives. This is all a way of breaking popular legitimacy. It's a very deliberate attempt here. Let's see here. Leo the Shining Star. How can I get in touch with them, Michelle or Anna? There, if you go to our Patreon, you will find a resource list, and it has a list of all those, all the people that you might be interested in. I think it's called recommendations or resources. If you click search resources, it has the name of all the astrologers I've recommended with the services they offer and their contact information there. Uh, and they also, of course, have their own websites here. Let's see here. What else did I hear? Maybe it's more the expansion of the RE industry as a result of mining. Maybe, I'm not sure. Keep an eye out if you all are interested. Like, please keep an eye out on the um, drilling stuff because I am bummed that I got that wrong because I was like Aquarius, like I was like this has got to be drilling Aquarius with that Saturn in the second in Pisces. So if he announces new offshore drilling, let me know. Just tag me because I'm like, there's a part of me that's like still, I mean, I don't want it to come true. I'd rather be wrong than ruin the environment. I'm okay with being wrong. But there's a part of me that goes, I'm worried that it's going to be like the thing he does in just like the last couple days or he does in January or February. So if it comes out, check that out. So the extraction of critical minerals rather than oil, yeah, that might be possible. I'll take a look at that. But there is definitely like some type of oil thing. I think I could be wrong here. My bad. New licenses for virgin fields in the North Sea and the UK are being stopped. That's a good sign. Shout out to Mexico's first female president. I am so jealous of Mexico right now. I don't even know. I don't even know what to do with myself right now. There's this picture of her where she's doing like she's holding up. I think she's holding up incense and she's wearing like a all white along with the sash and like it's the shot from behind and before her like indigenous activists and it is like the most like aura formed as my younger cousins would say a leader has ever done. It is a pretty badass image. Akil says, so your November prediction was very correct about the maneuvers of war and the unveiling of weapons in heightened danger. Unfortunately, so those monthly ones are quite interesting. But in the US, there has been significant new offshore oil, has there, and gas activity, primarily driven by the BBB in the Gulf of Mexico. So you weren't okay. I'm going to check that out, Bodhi Mindful. Okay, maybe I just missed the news, but the new drilling. So I thought it was going to be either on the shores of California or in the Gulf of Mexico or near. But we'll see. I'll check the news out after we're finished here. But if anyone comes across that, that one was quite big that I thought was missed. If I got it right, then hell yeah, we're headed towards more accuracy. The other one that I got wrong, and then we'll move on to 2026, was I thought there was going to be a death of an elite or a noble here in December, and it's one thing I mentioned that we would see the death of one of the nobles or the sort of elite class, and that hasn't happened as far as we still have a few weeks in December because of it's the lunar month, not the solar month. It's a lunar month. So there's still like a week and a half left, almost 2 weeks left in the astrological December. So it might happen, but so far it has not happened. And so that's a pretty significant miss in that regard. So keep your eyes out, not to be all gloom and doom. Keep your eyes out for the death of an elite and offshore drilling. Those two ones are particularly big. But on the whole, the 2025 almanac I'm pretty happy with. I think we fine tuned it enough. We're reaching almost 98% accuracy. I'm trying to get it to like 99 and higher, but we're about 97, 98. So we're moving like a percentage. I did the actual calculations. We're moving like a percentage every year, which is what I'm hoping for. So when we started this, they were around 93% accurate or so. We've moved to 95. Now we're like at the 97, 98 range. I'm hopefully going to fine tune it further so that these techniques can then be applied by all of you and you can make these same interpretations. All right, let's take a look at 2026. Let me just move this stupid thing, 'cause I don't know how. Here we go. Okay, this is the horoscope of 2026. We have set it for Washington, D.C., where the sun has ingressed into Aries in the 11th house, and the sign that is rising is Gemini. Quick knowledge check: when the sign is double bodied, like Gemini, or a Virgo, or Sagittarius, or Pisces. When the sign is double bodied, how many horoscopes do you have to cast for the year? How many horoscopes? I'm going to pause here. Let's do a quick in class, right? A quick knowledge check. How many horoscopes do you cast when you have a double bodied sign? And this gives me a chance to drink some water. How many horoscopes do you cast when the horoscope of the year, the Aries ingress, is double bodied? For people who have been following the lives and who have been watching the demos, this is a chance for you to showcase what you've learned. If you've learned anything or learned nothing. Let's see here. We'll wait. There's a delay, so that if it seems like there's a weird wait, there's a latency between what I say and what the chat hears. I don't know why YouTube does that. I'm assuming it's for some type of protection or censorship. I don't know. Anybody? Does anyone know? Let's see if anyone can remember. Double bodied, how many horoscopes would you cast? I'll give you a hint. If the sign is fixed, you only cast one horoscope. So if it's Aquarius, if it's Taurus, if it's Leo, those all indicate only one. I'm missing one. Scorpio. That indicates only one horoscope. So last year's was Aquarius. That means only one horoscope for the year. If it's double bodied, I'm going to wait a couple more seconds and then I'm just going to give you the answer. Okay, so if it's double bodied, nobody knows this. That's okay. Everyone's forgotten. It's two. This is a quick sign. If the sign is double bodied, you would make two horoscopes, one for the Aries ingress and one for the Libra ingress. If the sign is tropical, or I forgot what the other word for tropical is, but those are Aries, Cancer, uh, Libra, and Capricorn. Those are a cardinal. Cardinal is the words, right? If they're cardinal or tropical, you would cast it for each one of the ingresses, each four of the ingresses into the tropical signs. If it's double bodied, you do it for the Aries ingress and for the Libra ingress. If it's fixed, you only need one horoscope for the year. So we would do the Aries ingress, and then later when you read the almanac, you'll see that there's a Libra ingress as well that I have done. And so the Libra ingress is also included. But for now, we're just going to focus on the ingress of the sun into Aries and the horoscope of Gemini. I think I may be freezing up. It looks like it says some type of latency issue. If I'm freezing up, let me know in the chat if there's some type of visual error. And we'll pause and check the internet. So we start first with the double-bodied sign of Aries. So this is the interpretation that will continue until Libra. So from spring through summer, and then we will look at Libra when it comes up. So since it's double-bodied, you look at first the sign. What does Gemini govern? That should tell you who is being affected, what places are being affected. Then you look to see the sign are the governor of the horoscope, which is Mercury, and Mercury here indicates the general condition of those people and the general condition of the year. Mercury is not so well in the 10th house. This is an indication of confusion, of loss, an indication of your material conditions generally not looking overly good. It is also conjunct that Mars, so it indicates some type of rebellion. So we had 2026 is a year of rebellion. You would say that it's probably a rebellion against who? It's in the 10th house, or a rebellion against the elites. This is why I said that 2026 in the past I mentioned is a year of accountability. And so you're probably going to see a lot of pushbacks, revelations around corruption of the elite, rebellion against those elites, and an attempt to hold those elites accountable. Whether we're successful or not is a different matter entirely. The most important that you're going to look at are the malefics. Why? Because Mars is the primary, is one of the major rulers of the next 20 years, as is Saturn, since we are in the mighty year of Aquarius, or the mighty year of Saturn, because the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions are Saturnian. They're in Aquarius. It was in Aquarius. So the next 20 years, these two matters. If you did nothing else in world astrology, if you did nothing else but look at Jupiter, if you looked at Mars and Saturn year by year and how they shifted, you could make pretty significant predictions in that regard. You can completely understand what is going on. So if you look at Mars here, Mars has moved from the 6th to the 10th, indicating an increase in power. This tells us that this is a serious year when it comes to matters of war, when it comes to matters of conflict, particularly in the areas of the seas and in the ports, but also trade. Pisces governs trade, particularly the things that you bring into your home that is pretty. So like this would be like Amazon purchases get disrupted. Is would be like one big interpretation of Mars in the 10th in Pisces, like some type of disruption to Amazon's shipping lanes, or any type of shipping lane disruption would be impacted in some way, shape, or form. Saturn in Aries would indicate the corruption of the police or the corruption of the military, the marching of riotous troops. So what we've been seeing in 2025, if we were to make a connection between 2025 and 2026, is the way in which we're looking at the police run rampant, or the law enforcement more broadly run rampant. We've looked at ICE as a completely ungovernable institution. So, what does a Saturn in Aries indicate as in regards to an ungovernable institution, an ungovernable police force? Does it mean the rioting of police? Does it mean the brutality of the police and its law enforcement? Does it mean other, for example, manifestations of lawlessness among the so called law enforcement? All would indicate something along those lines, particularly as it's ruled over by that Mars in the 10th and in Pisces. So, what we're looking at is many of the themes of 2025 in which we've seen the brutality of ICE is now going to come to the forefront in 2026. Confrontations with law enforcement, confrontations with police, confrontations with the lawless law enforcement agencies, the corruption of them. This might even indicate something as silly as like if there's an institution of the police, like something changing it, like changing, like, we saw the change of the name of the Department of Defense, changing the name of the FBI, or changing the FBI's from, their location, or changing one of the job descriptions of the FBI. But literally a sort of change to law enforcement that is an indication of its corruption would be a manifestation of that. It might be something literally as stupid as like, we're going to change the Federal Bureau of Investigation to the something else Bureau of Justice, or something like that, coming up with a stupid name, or changing headquarters, or changing uniforms, like all, like literal manifestations of some type of change that would indicate a corruption of some sort. Can you all hear me? Just give me a double, like someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me in the chat here, because I think I may be frozen, and I just want to make sure that I'm not frozen. Can everyone hear me? think I may be frozen. Just if I'm going to pause there for a second, if you can all hear me, give me a quick thumbs up that you can, because my computer is doing some, it's saying latency something, so we may have some, we've had terrible storms in Southern California, so I may, we may have some issues here in that regards. But if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. All good for me says, okay, so I'm just frozen on my end. It looks like you can all see, you actually did answer the question. I just, for some reason, couldn't see it. Let me just refresh the screen. For some fucking reason, my computer is frozen. I think it may just be on my end because we have some storms that are happening. Yes, okay, I think we're back. Okay, looks like we had some wonderful answers. I want to give some shout outs to people. It was freezing a few minutes ago. Okay. All right. So let's take I'm going to scroll back and answer some of these. Don't worry, I will get back to it. Let's see here. I don't have blue sky. Where were we? The Trump has been saying drill baby, actually, says TMO. That's true, though he hasn't, I don't think he has approved it yet. So let's take a look at this. Drilling in California and Florida, December 2nd, 2025. Okay, Christine Connor says drilling in California and Florida, December 2nd, 2025. Okay, this is interesting. I'm going to check that out. Because that would mean that, okay, I must have missed that news. Thank you, Christine, for shouting, for putting that out. I'm going to write this down real quick. December 2nd, drilling in Florida and California. Okay. Thank you, Christine. Let's see here. Yeah, they've been stroking tensions with Venezuela. Rob Reiner and his wife, since they were more than just entertainers. Oh, that's possible. I gotta check that out. I'm not really following what happened with Rob Reiner and the wife. It looks like their sound did disappear for a moment, but now we're back on. So when you have a cardinal, that's right. You would have four charts, and when you double bodied, you have two charts. Very good. I have no experience, but let me guess. Two. Very good. Very good. Looks like we're back on, which is important because for some reason there was a weird delay. Again, apologies for the technical issues. We're having all sorts of storms. Someone asked if I can zoom in. Let me see. I can't zoom in, but I can probably just make it bigger, right? Is that better? There we go. Hopefully you can see I've made this a little bit bigger there. Michelle says they have to go to dinner. Enjoy your dinner there, Michelle. Have a great night. Glad you could join us here. We had 60 people at one point. I think the technological problems made people run away. Okay, so overall, we're looking at trade disruptions, particularly disruptions around shipping lanes in particular. We're also looking at some type of corruption of law enforcement. Look for something stupid, even because of that existence of that Venus there, like cosmetic changes, like the change of the name of a law enforcement agency, the change of a uniform of an agency, but also like the change of location, building, names, things like that. Keep an eye out for stuff like that as like a possibility, but also a confrontation with the lawlessness of the police in that regards. Kimberly Parker says, will you consider Aquarius MC as a link to the Great Conjunction? Yep. So you always pay attention to the MC, and when you see in the almanac, you'll see that I pay attention to the MC. It's also important because it's as one of the transfers that you're doing in world astrology is the transfer of the MC. So you're always sort of paying attention to that. Much better, says Dr. Olami. Okay, great. I'm glad that you can all see it. Just cast the chart so I could see it. Reverse of Sibley rising. What is the Sibley rising again? I forget. It's Sagittarius, right? Is that correct? Almost never look at the Sibley chart, if I'm honest with you, and I've explained why in the past, but I think it's a Sagittarius rising, if I'm not mistaken. I got to check that out. Okay, now that you have the horoscope and you've looked at the malefics, of course, the big thing to do is the lot of dominion. So let's take a look at the lot of dominion together, and then I'm going to open this up to see if you all can make some predictions based off of the lot of dominion as I showed you for the 2025. So the lot of dominion is again from Jupiter to Saturn. So you would count from Jupiter to Saturn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then subtract a few. So you would then, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. nine. Nine, sorry about that. So nine. So then you would, from the ascendant, you'd go one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, and it'll be in the sort of early stages of Pisces. So a lot of dominion. Someone can also double check this for me if you have a lot calculator from Jupiter to Saturn projected from the ascendant. Feel free to double check this. So we have the lot of dominion in Pisces in the 10th house, where it's co present with Mercury not doing so well on malefic Mars, but it is ruled over by Jupiter in the second, exalted in Cancer. So the themes should be the 10th house, the second house, Jupiter exalted with the confounding elements of Mercury and Mars. And then I'm going to open this up. Let's see if any of you all have any predictions of what the lot of dominion, as in terms of a policy pursued by the ruler, their main focus is going to be for 2026. Madeline says, what do you think then about casting a chart for the time of a name change of something like that to discern the direction of the thing? Oh, yeah, you can absolutely do that. If something changes their name, like an institution changes their name, cast the election for when it is announced, and it will tell you what the motivation is behind the name change and what the name change will do to the founding. What you would then do is compare the name change horoscope to the founding horoscope. So, like if the United States of America changed its name to the United States of Trump, heaven forbid, right? You would take the name change and compare it to the foundation of America. Not, in my opinion, the Sibley chart, but some type of Jupiter Saturn conjunction of the Earth that indicated the rise of America as an empire. But yes, you would absolutely cast the horoscope of a name change. You could also do this for people. When people change their name, you take the name change chart and compare it to their natal chart, and it will tell you what the motivations for the name change was, as well as what certain elements are added here. All right, Go Hillary says maritime wars. I think so. I think you may be absolutely right. Some type of trade war, maritime war, student loans, maybe. We can hope that they would go in the right direction, but absolutely not, right? I think you actually may be right in regards to students also because Jupiter governs scholars, so maybe they'll do something funky with student rights in regards to like either increasing people's student loans or removing any sort of forgiveness that might have been there. Mahira says revenue in some way, shape, or form. Go Hillary says, but I'm also concerned with the South China Sea situation. We're smack dab in the middle of that with the US and China flexing at each other. So I'm wondering if these means escalation. Yeah, the seas here are really problematic. Through and through, seas are an issue. So China's stuff is something to keep an eye on, says Robert. Uh, Gabriel says, hi, Ali. Just started learning Arabic in a local mosque near my house. Oh, how cool. Congratulations. We should say, Ahlan wa sahlan, Gabriel. Welcome, welcome. That is really cool. I love that. I love when people start picking up languages. So, yeah, maritime, trade, South China Sea. The China Sea thing really matters a lot because Pisces governs the seas of China and the seas of Yemen. So Yemen will play a big role. China plays a big role. So they're literally the seas of China and the seas of Yemen. So it's like the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Pacific are sort of all would be, or the South China Sea would all be Pisces in that regards. It's a lot of land and a lot of water mass in that regards. But what about that Jupiter exalted in Cancer? How would that help the interpretation a little bit? So I think you're all right so far. Maritime wars, trade wars, some type of conflict on the seas, the disruption of trading and shipping lines. But what about in regards to Jupiter exalted in Cancer? How might you interpret that? What might that mean for this interpretation? We'll take a couple more and then we'll sort of wrap up here. Excuse me. All I can think about is the bowl of pomegranates the pomegranate seeds that are waiting me. I completely forgot to eat yesterday. Red Sea is Pisces. It's the Sea of Yemen more broadly, not just the Red Sea. So the Red Sea, the seas around Yemen, that entire area, the Indian Ocean, all is considered to be Pisces. So Pisces governs those waterways. Now we can expand that obviously. The Islamic astrologers are generally focused on sort of the Middle East and Africa and India more broadly. But because we live in a more global world, we can just say maritime wars more broadly, which is, I think, what can help us with understanding the South China Sea, conflict with China, but also more broadly shipping lanes. One of the things that we don't realize is that the vast majority of our shipping is still done by sea. Like it all goes through the straits, right? All of it goes through the Red Sea Strait, the Suez Canal, which is why that during the pandemic, that boat that got stuck, I forgot the name of the boat, Bodie McBoatface is what I call it, but it was called something. Some massive ass ship got stuck, and it caused capitalism to freak out because that is the bloodline of capitalism. If you cut that off ever, capitalism will shake very, very significantly. Go Hillary says, I'm wondering if there might be some sort of Southeast Asia led coalition against China. I'm not optimistic, honestly, but it's a thought. Now, that's interesting. Now, the reason I say that that's interesting is that since it's in the 10th house, that indicates some type of elite and governments. And since there is that Mars that is co present, that brings in the 11th house Aries. So I'm not sure if there will be a positive coalition, but I think there will be a maneuvering of coalitions that happens where like a remaking of alliances in Southeast Asia and their relationship to China is very likely, Hillary. I think you're on the mark there. There's going to be some type of reworking of alliances. So maritime conflicts, shipping lane disruptions, disruptions in trade, perhaps the targeting of the finances of scholars of some way, shape, or form via student loans, conflict in the South China Sea, conflict in the Red Sea, and the reworking of alliances among Southeast Asia or among these countries of the shore. So I would say Yemen, I would say Southeast Asia, China, all of these countries that are really interested in the seas right now. There's some type of reworking of alliances there. Borkle Wampus is laughing at my Bodie McBoat face. Yes, I couldn't remember it, so I'm just like, I'm gonna call it Bodie McBoat face, whatever that boat's. It's called something else. Especially considering Southeast Asia is having its own conflicts regarding Thailand and Cambodia, which was sort of out of the blue, and India and China nearly kicked off, and India, like borders is like an ongoing issue. The fungibility of borders and people's contestation of those borders is just an ongoing problem. It's something that we're just all going to have to confront for the next 20 years. Okay, so for me, I would also add that with that Jupiter in that Cancer, this tells me exalted can be good. I don't want to be totally negative. Exalted can be good. This would be an indication of, so the good interpretation would be the confrontation of those issues. So this might lead to something like shipping being disrupted, which causes some type of increase of prices. And since there is an increase of prices, that would then lead to a confrontation around those prices. So this is like, you remember like that Ticketmaster shit that happened a couple years ago where like Ticketmaster was like jacking up prices, or Uber was jacking up prices in the middle of a crisis. I think we're going to see something similar along those lines, is that we're going to find out, in my opinion, I think this is going to be algorithm based. I think people are going to be more conscious of the algorithm based prices. That is the way in which Instacart, Uber Eats, what's the other one? DoorDash, etc. The way that they actually manipulate prices, or Uber does, via the algorithm. They use AI now, literally AI prices, that are like, okay, well, a lot of people are buying this. We're going to increase the price by $1, which is different from what the price is in the grocery store. And I think that's going to come to a head. Because one of the things with exalted planets is that they yank money and resources. They are coronations, right? And so coronations eat up wealth. And so to me, this indicates, particularly if we think about how algorithms, AI, and institutions play a big role here, this to me says in 2026, we're going to see a confrontation around the manipulation of prices, perhaps tech manipulation of prices, where something is suddenly $20 more or $5 more or whatnot based off of some algorithm AI bullshit. Right? So to me, that's what that Jupiter in Cancer means there. So I'm just putting that out there. This is a tease of what's in the almanac there. Trump has announced he's preparing to garnish late student loan payments, says Astro Anna, or Anna Astro. Oh shit. When did he announce this? Do you know? I need to go double check this. Okay, this he's announced. I said this before the almanac came out. Some of these things are going to come true before the almanac has even published it. I need to. It's a good thing I'm doing this now so that we have a record of it. But garnishing, oh shit, garnishing loans. I think they're also very clearly going to remove some of those like um like there some of the payment plans that allow you to that based off of your need, the payments are lower. I forgot what they're called, but I think they're going to mess with that very significantly. Bodhi Mindful says that makes me think of the recent escalation of conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. Absolutely, further rising of nationalism. Very good. In regards to boundaries and international, excellent Bodhi. That's exactly what you need to do. Is you take the interpretation and put it back into the major themes of the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, which is again borders, the fungibility of them, the debate and contestation of them, and the remaking of the sort of map that we're looking at. Channel of Awesomeness, love that. There was recently an article that in 2026 they're going to start aggressively garnishing wages for defaulted student loans. So now we have two testimonies about this. Yet that's fucked up. But that well done for whoever. I think it was. Let me go back and give proper credit here. Was it Hillary that mentioned student loans? Tiamat mentioned student loans. So shout out to Tiamat about student loans. It looks like this is absolutely on the money here in that regards. Let's see, making sure. For the mundane take, can we think of the mutable rising as indicating events carrying over from the previous year and spilling over into next year? Yes. So whenever this is Bodhi Mindful's question. So Bodhi asks, whenever there's a double-bodied sign, how do you interpret the effects of the year? When it's a fixed sign, that indicates that the effects of the year are felt throughout the year. When it is tropical, it says the effects will come before, but they don't last very long. So if this was, for example, Aries rising, we would say that the prediction starts all the way in January. Even though the actual beginning of the year is in March, we would say we would already start to feel the effects in January, but then they would start to fade. For double bodied, what that indicates is that the themes of the previous year will be felt in the current year, and the themes of the current year, 2026, will be felt in 2027. So, what it does is it creates a sort of bleeding or bridge between the years. The double bodied means that the effects are going to be felt some this year, some next year. So, that's an excellent question in that regards. Popcorn Peepaws says the Ever Given. Yes, that's the name of the boat, not Bodie McBoatface. Though we will rename it, I think, in honor of my bad memory. Asa says NPR just did an article on Instacart doing dynamic prices for their groceries. Really? Fucking Instacart. I knew that Uber did it for like they got caught a couple years ago, but I didn't know Instacart is now doing this. So, is it AI? Do you know if it's AI or if it's just like sort of random? But I want like this is the thing that I think with that Jupiter. If they're doing it, I think this is where that confrontation comes in, where people are going to call that out more, that dynamic pricing or AI driven pricing. Callie Demetria, hi Callie, how you doing? Yeah, it's been called surveillance pricing. Oh fuck, I hate that. And it's allegedly changes based on how much you're willing to spend. Oh, that is twisted. People have noticed flight prices changes as they're about to check out. They told us that the AI was going to cure cancer, and all it was is a better way to make to steal money. It literally is just another advertisement. It wasn't. It was Sam Altman's ass was just recently talking about Chat GPT and how it's going to make shopping easier and make more customizable ads. That's what it all was. It was a fucking grift from the very beginning to create more specific ways of taking money, extracting wealth from people. Anyways, I'm not going to let my Marxism shine too much. So prediction markets and sport betting markets, this is Tiamat, might see more regulation this year, but that's just a random guess. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Let's write this down and see. Let's revisit that. You know, they tried regulating AI attack by assessing the amount of computation. I'm going to write this down because I think that's a cool one. Betting and gambling markets or prediction markets. Prediction markets. For me, prediction market would be a little bit more. Oops, I'm losing my notebook here. So for me, prediction market would be if this had been here in the fifth, which is generally games of gambling. But it's possible. I wonder if you'll see rather than regulation, integration of some sort. Like you might see, what is that, Kashi or whatever? You might see Kashi as like a formal government event with Kashi or some shit like that, a prediction market thing. Just because of that 10th house, second house connection, right? So like I wonder if you like taking Tiamat's mention of prediction markets, maybe they're more integration. Prediction market, it would be more fifth, but it is interesting. I'm definitely going to include that. Announced a couple days ago. Is this the surveillance shit? Fuck, this drives me nuts. AI stuff really drives me nuts through and through. Okay, let's read a couple of these, and then I'm going to show you the seal. Let's see here. Sorry, not NPR. Consumer Reports, More Perfect Union, and Groundwork Collaboration. I'm going to write this down. Consumer Reports, and surveillance pricing or dynamic pricing. You all hear me writing like a maniac? I have these. My pens are very loud. They're very scratchy. Badar says, Tiamat says, yes, I said they only got caught because of journalists. This is interesting. So this tells me that we're on the money here. That's already in the almanac for the record. But we're definitely going to see confrontations around some type of dynamic pricing. AI driven pricing is definitely going to be a thing in 2026. And it looks like it's already building in that regards. Badr says, I don't know why I have this flashback. During the Corona period, the Suez Canal in Egypt was blocked for a long period and affected the transportation on the sea. That's what I was talking about. Yeah, the Bodie McBoatface, which we were very kindly told is actually known called the Ever Given Evergreen. Oh, I already forgot it again. Whatever it was, I'm so sorry. But well, yeah, Bodie McBoatface. That was the Suez Canal that got blocked. Alloy Jane says they're dynamic prices based on your personal data. Isn't that twisted? Just twisted. Ace says yes, it's AI. They acquired an AI company that handled dynamic pricing a few years ago, and that plays into God. That drives me nuts. All right, we're gonna do a whole astrology of AI at one point. As you can tell, I am not in favor in any way, shape, or form. And by the way, it's the quickest way to fail my classes. I'm very cool and laid back about anything, but if you get caught using AI, it's like automatic fail. No AI. We've abdicated everything to this thing. We've abdicated our critical thinking ability. We've abdicated our creative potential. We've abdicated even now. It's being used as a weapon against us. And the thing is, and we have to acknowledge this, and the almanac talks about this, about how many of these things are weapons of war that are designed and then tested on Palestinians, on the people of Sudan, and the people of the Congo, and the people, minoritized and marginalized people around the world. And then they're marketed as battle tested and then sold to corporations here to be used against the domestic worker. So just, you know, we got to all be mindful of this in some regards. Christian Bruno says, "I'm pretty sure they never actually said AI would cure cancer. I think they did say that at one point, or say they would resolve. It was Sam Altman that said at one point will help to cure cancer, not that it would cure cancer, and that it would help cure cancer in some way, shape, or form, but it would help in that regards. So yeah, I do remember that interview with good old Sam Altman. Ollie, I remember at one point you were speaking about filling in the maps with regards to world astrology and in modern astrology. Can I ask how that's going? It's going pretty well. I think I'll probably be presenting a world astrology lecture mid year 2026, and I'll have the full map up for you all. It's actually a table, but it's going well. I have a couple more places to check, but mostly we've found Latin America is sort of divided up between Scorpio, Capricorn, and Aquarius is sort of the big ones. I'm just double checking the United States because I'm a little hit or miss with it. I assigned DC to Scorpio because it was a swamp, but the rest of the US I'm like I'm a little iffy about. I'm interested if we're gonna take the Jupiter Saturn conjunctions, or if I can find an actual manuscript of an early modern astrologer that says that the US, what eventually becomes the US, has an actual sign associated with it. So Rafin says super local, but I think Lena Khan is setting out to tackle the issue of dynamic pricing. I hope so. Lena Khan is our hope here in New York City as a way to make things more affordable in here via some older laws about consumer and trust. I'm keep an eye on Lena Khan and what's going on in DC in New York there. What a fantastic! I just filmed, by the way, I should say, I just filmed the astrology of Mamdani to give you a tease of what's coming up in January. I did a video demo where we look at the astrology of Mamdani. Remember, I did a poll between Wealth and Mamdani. Wealth won, so it came first. Mamdani, I just recorded like a couple days ago, and I'll be releasing it in January. It's a video demo where I go over what we can expect in regards. We're going to use the ascension charts to interpret what Mamdani's major policies are going to be, what his success is going to be. So keep an eye out for that. So we'll keep an eye out for that because we'll be releasing that in January. Christian Bruno says, "Do they actually call it surveillance pricing?" Oh, yeah, I don't know if it's. I got to double check. I know they call it dynamic pricing, but surveillance pricing also, because the technology actually comes out of surveillance. So the way that they use it is a very specific surveillance tool. It's actually, there's one that's already in place now called Tangled, if I'm not mistaken, that's used in Texas and in LA. And what it does is it basically surveils your social media and creates a profile of you for the police, of how likely you are to protest, how likely you are to cause issues, etc. That same technology is also used for ads. So you can either use it to create profiles of people for the police or profiles of people for CEOs. I'm not 100% sure if it's called surveillance pricing, so I'll have to double check that for you, but there is a surveillance connection there. No shade, but I'm wary to consume Chris Brennan with his tendency to over idealize him. AI is a good thing. Oh, does Chris do that? I didn't know that. I'll talk. I gotta chat with Chris. This is where we disagree. I have nothing but love for Chris. I think he does really great work, but I'm super AI skeptical. Super AI skeptical. I'll tell you why. I'm a historian first and foremost. And as a historian, when you see these sort of technologies that emerge, there's ways in which technologies emerge as democratic tools. The printing press is an example of this. It is a fundamentally democratic tool that's designed to popularize reading. The problem is that AI is designed first and foremost as an elite tool, but it's marketed as a popular tool. Oh, you can use it to summarize your reading. You can use it to write an essay. You can use it to make art. It's now accessible to everyone. But the fundamental goal, what makes AI marketable, is not that it is democratizing. It's that it can then be sold to a corporation, that it can be sold to the government. And so, as a historian, whenever we have technology that's like that, what it ends up doing is being more deleterious than constructive. So, even beyond just the way that it's risking our notion of humanity, I think it's worrisome to me as a historian of science when we are keep trying to create the perfect slave, because that's what they're doing. Let me be clear about that. Robots, AI, all are tied to this idea. But when I look at AI, I don't see the printing press. I see dynamite. There is a technology parallel. It's dynamite. It's not the printing press. It's marketed as this tool of democratization, but at its goal, it is fundamentally about weaponization and the way that it can be co-opted. And so that's why, for me, I am very skeptical. I'm not saying everyone has to agree with me. Everyone can have their own things. Like, I have nothing but respect for Chris Brennan, but this is where I would disagree around the AI thing, because as a historian, I look at it and I go, yeah, I've seen this before. This is very recognizable to me, and the potential for danger for labor, for the workforce. Also, I'm at the front lines of this, y'all. I see what it's doing to my students. I cannot, and I'm not trying to sound like a boomer here, because there are some professors that are boomers, like, oh, these kids these days, right? I'm not like that. First of all, I'm a millennial. I'm barely like 7 years older than my oldest student, right? Like, I'm not that much older than most of my students. We share, millennials and Gen Z share more commonality than differences. But I have seen in literally 3 years, there's like a mark. 2023 is like the turning point. From 2023 to 2025, it has done horrible shit to their attention spans, to their critical thinking ability, to their ability to read, their ability to write, especially if you get them right out of high school. The freshmen that are coming in have like no reading and writing skills whatsoever, and it is almost entirely AI. And they're very own. Like, I have conversations with them. They're very open about it. Like, this was AI summarized for me. So being in the front lines gives me a little bit of like a different interpretations there. Christian Bruno says, oh yes, the Palestine Laboratory, phenomenal book. If anyone is interested in Lowenstein's book, Palestine Laboratory, absolutely check it out. Everything you need to know about battle tested technology and the way that it's coming here. You're going to see the drone technology that was used in Gaza. You're going to see the surveillance technology that was used in Gaza. You're going to see the weaponry that was used in Gaza on our streets sooner or later. Dusk says, I know Pluto consideration is a modern tropical technique, but this 20-year ingress in Aquarius, I feel like I may be seeing extremes of tech AI and maybe suggests an intense rebellion against it. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about the outer planets, which is why I don't touch it, but I have respect for anyone's interpretation that mentions that. We'll definitely take that in consideration. Claim Paradise. Hello, Claim. How you doing? I key DR. I don't know what that means. I'm so sorry. I key DR. DR. What does that mean? I'm assuming it's an acronym for something. Borkle Wampu says, yes, the astrology of Mumdani. Yes, I promise it was going to be pretty interesting here. All right, let me make sure. Aloe Jane says, nice. Would be interesting to do the same thing with Kat. Yeah, I'm really interested about Kat's chances. She also she literally was attacked by ice, so credit to them. But yeah, I gotta find out more details about Kat. I haven't paid too much attention astrologically, but I have been paying attention to the news there. Asa says, yes, there are a couple of contemporary astrologers who are pursuing Gen AI as the next big thing for Astro because they flatten astrology to a pattern recognition. Yeah, don't do that. In my humble opinion, you will kill the humanist approach to astrology. Astrology is not cookie cutter, and AI can never, in my humble opinion, it can generate weekly, monthly horoscopes, sure, but it can't get at this granular level. One of the things that I've talked about, and hopefully I've conveyed this to all of you, is one of the ways that astrology is taught is as mastering the tradition as a guardrail. And once you master the tradition, it then allows you to start thinking creatively. So the way, for example, I'm able to go from Aquarius as digging to Aquarius to digging for oil, right? Like that is an example of using the tradition as guardrails. That can only happen when you have a sort of humanist mastery. There's an Arabic word that Abu Mashir uses. It's called tajraba. Tajraba means experience, but it's a very specific type of experience that emerges in craft and art. It's not technical experience. It's the person who carves a wood and by feel they know how where they put their knife, what it's going to do to that wood. You can technically create and replicate all sorts of things in wood, but only a master carver knows whether that wood will splint, whether that wood will carve thick or thin, will know what, because there's a sort of tactile feel to it that no technology has. It requires the sensing of your fingertips. If you've ever seen a master carver, the way they touch the wood, they sense the grains of the wood. And it's the same thing in midwifery. The way in which a midwife knows how to turn a baby, knows how to push, like those things. I have no doubt that we will have the technology that will deliver babies, but it will never replace a midwife because the midwife can see the sweat on the brow, can see the pain on the face. There's things that the midwife can do, right? That technology just can't do. And astrology is the same way. There is a science to astrology, but at its core, it is an art and it is a craft. And there's this humanist approach that generative AI can never, ever get at. These little nuances, like knowing when to pay attention to the Dora Coda Moria, when not to, these are qualitative. These are qualitative. So no matter how much of the formula you get, you're never going to get to that qualitative component of it. And so also you don't want to be out of work. So let's not eliminate the astrologer quite yet in that regard. So yes, I'm very much with you, Asif. I think generative AI here is not the way to go. Keon says AI is so horrible for the environment. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, by the way, that oppression, the protection against oppression stuff. I hope that some of you use that for the data centers that are being built up and that are stealing your water. Just want to put that out there that some of those techniques about protection from oppression is designed specifically for that. Sarah says, I'm extremely concerned about the future of astrology with everyone and their mom using it instead of approaching astrologers for readings. Some people don't want to pay people for the work. Yeah, it's a frustration of mine too. This is not tied to just astrology. It's the death of expertise, right? Everyone's going to Google something rather than go to an expert. All I can say is that I have made a commitment that I will always uphold experts. If I can go to a person and hire a person to do something, I will do so rather than do it myself. That's also just my laziness. But also, it's a way of creating connections, right? Like, I have a cobbler still. I don't know if I've ever admitted this, but I have a cobbler still that because I don't want to get rid of these shoes. They're really comfortable. I go to this cobbler all the time, right? Like, it's important for us to build these connections in these communities because they will die out. And I don't want to see that to happen to astrology, which is what this Patreon is all about. It's about creating new experts and really giving you the tool. All right, let's see here. I keep thinking about AI as basically taking one thing people control in a capitalist society, their labor. Oh my God, right on the money, right? It's literally one of the biggest frustrations. And they're very open about this. I think it was it Gates that said that basically the entry level jobs are going to be mostly AI? Unfortunately, that's come true. If you're in comp sci, by the way, there's this thing that's happening in the university that no one's talking about. Comp sci as a degree has collapsed. Almost nobody's getting jobs with comp sci degrees. It used to be the degree of the 2000s. If you get a comp sci degree, you were guaranteed a job. What's happened is all the entry positions are AI now, or they've been. And the reality is like the AI can't do it, but they're used as a tool to dismantle labor in that way. And in the society that we're living in, where labor is already under assault, this is just the next level here. All right. Claim says, I know that's right. I'm so sorry, Claim. I somehow knew that, but I forgot that. It is the reality. It's not beating the boomer allegations. I am the most boomer millennial you will ever meet. Minus the racism and hating my neighbor shit. Like when it comes to technology, I am a boomer. I may be a millennial. Don't be fooled by the shaved head. I'm in my early 30s. But I'm a boomer when it comes to technology. Claim Paradise says, "Hello, Doctor Olomi. Thank you for another amazing horoscope." Hello, Claim there. Let's see here. Madeline says, "I don't really agree with using this system in any light, but it may be the only way path to take down eventually will be from the inside." It's very possible. Very, very possible. All right, let me share all of you. If I missed any other comment, there's this great video. It says Dusk9683, who's our newcomer here. Welcome, Dusk. Glad to have you. There's this great video by historian Sean Munger who outlines the stark parallels of technological advancements always coinciding with capitalism and imperialism. There's a theme there for sure. Yeah, so that's a really great. Check that out. But this is the last thing I swear. I've gone on and on about this, but this is a very real issue. So one of the things we don't talk about is how industrialization coincided with colonialism. Very specifically, there's this really great book called The Great Divergence by Ken Pomerantz that takes England and China and goes, why was this massive divergence between China and England, where England industrializes? And the primary answer is colonialism. Because of the Malthusian concerns of Great Britain, they colonized abroad in order to take resources, whereas China, being already wealthy, didn't engage in a lot of overseas colonization, much more minimal. Same thing with the Ottoman Empire. And so what was needed was industrialization, technological advancement in order to further colonialism. And when we look at AI technology, when we look at every time one of these fucking things come out, these iPhones come out, the only thing I still have, I don't know which one this is, the 11 or whatever it is. I'm not updating this because every time it comes out, all I can think about is that the technology that is built comes out of the mines of the Congo, where kids as young as 4 or 5 are being forced into these mines to work for Apple. Their labor is then exploited, and then that labor is further exploited in places like Latin America or China, where these factories are built, or Southeast Asia. So there's always been this connection in which technological advancement, which can be good and democratic, has an ugly, darker side that is tied to colonialism and empire. And that, to bring it full round, is deeply tied to the Great Conjunction in Aquarius. One of the things about the Great Conjunction in Aquarius is that it is this exploitation of land, the corruption of land, the corruption of water, and these institutions that have become ossified over the years, that have calcified over the years, turning cancerous. So the way in which the institution of law, the way in which our technological institutions, all these things become deleterious to society. And I think that's the major theme that we're going to be seeing over the next 20 years, not just around AI, but all technology, about how, yeah, it improved our lives, that I can order up Taco Bell. Don't get Taco Bell. It's horrible for you. I can order up Taco Bell or only get the Baja Blast because it's the only thing that's decent there. The rest of it isn't food. I don't know why you all eat Taco Bell. That food stuff, meat stuff. Ugh. You can order up Taco Bell. That's great. It does amazing things for people who are disabled, for people who can't get out. The tools are there, and they can be really, really useful. But they can also be incredibly harmful. So that what starts off as a great tool that helps someone who is disabled, that can help to address a very real need, right? Then becomes a tool of exploitation, of extraction. And that's, I think, something that we need to be very mindful of over the next 20 years. Asa says, yes, I got my degree in IT, and that's essentially the issue I had while looking for jobs. I'm so sorry about that, Asa. Yeah, my students are literally on the same boat. All the people that we told get tech degrees, get comp sci degrees, get programming degrees, the entry level positions for them have just disappeared. And like, that's our fault, one, for overemphasizing that, but two, for as a society just allowing that to happen. This is where we should have organized around labor, because nobody should be in that boat here. My daughter is in comp sci. She has an internship. Woohoo! Congratulations. I love to hear that. She's a charmed girl. Robert says, yes, I was just teaching this in my world geography class. Fellow teacher there. All right, let's talk about the technology. Let's talk about the seal of sustenance here. We've talked forever, and I think this has been my longest AI. My longest AI. I've been talking about AI and how to. This is my longest live. Where's my draw button? Here we go. Okay, so this is known as the seal of sustenance. Try to work this out. So and see if it works for you for 2020. This is our remedy for 2026 to deal with the disruptions around trade and whatnot. Callie says, I plan on any new tech I have to buy to be refurbished for that reason. Very smart, Callie. Right there. All right. You want to do this when the moon is in Cancer and free from the malefics. And the reason why Cancer is called the home wealth in the same way that Leo governs the wealth of the state, coin makers, kings. Cancer has this sort of semi-forgotten connection to wealth of the home, the accumulation of things in the home and in the heart, and specifically the idea of protecting those wealth, protecting the home wealth, so your property, your assets, your things that you have in your home, protecting it from disasters, calamities, and undue expenses. So this is designed to bring in wealth, but specifically to protect it. This is a really important technique, and we'll see this when I talk about the magic of wealth and abundance in a lecture that I'm going to be releasing, the part 2 to the astrology of wealth, that there is multiple methods of doing spiritual wealth. And one is to draw wealth, but there's another element, and that is to protect your wealth, to make sure that it stays with you and it grows. So yeah, you get your paycheck in, but then you don't spend that paycheck, on car repairs. And then you go paycheck to paycheck. So you have a great paycheck, but it doesn't actually grow. This is a thing that we're seeing among millennials and Gen Z, is that we're being paid more than we've ever been paid before, than when we were, 19. But the money isn't staying, it's not growing, and so savings isn't really there. It's not being invested. Why? Because our expenses have increased, the essential expenses, groceries, rent, etc. So what this seal does is help to protect the wealth from those expenses so that you can start to grow little by little. So it simultaneously draws wealth in, but supposedly, according to the author, who is a guy named Khanka. It's not actually him, it's someone who wrote much later than him. But he claimed that this is the wise men of the Indians did this. And the technique is designed so that the money comes in, it stays, and then it begins to grow. So you're planting the seeds of long-term wealth and abundance. So that's why it's known as the seal of sustenance and the shield of poverty, to protect against poverty, the calamity of poverty, and to increase your sustenance to make it incredibly wealthy. Okay. Uh, Oh yes, Mary, hello, how you doing there? Mary says tech jobs should have been unionized decades ago for millions of reasons. Yeah, and there's a reason why, of course, they didn't unionize, right? They did a very good job of it. One of my first jobs was for a tech company or a telecommunications company. Can I say it? Yeah, I worked for Verizon. Anyways, I work for Verizon Wireless, and one of the things they were very good about is killing any chance of unionization. They always told you if anyone talks about unionization, come and talk to us, come and talk to us. And they did that by overemphasizing how much of a family they were. We're one big happy family. We're going to match your 401k 6%. This is the best company I've ever worked for. Why? Use the faux language of kinship, right? Faux kinship in order to kill true class solidarity in that regard. Anyways, that's a story for another time. So what you do is you take a square piece of paper. I'm using my mouse, so this is going to come out very ugly. I do apologize in advance. You take a square piece of paper. It should be square. When the moon is in Cancer and when it is free from the unfortunes, you want to do this specifically on a Thursday. So whenever the moon is in Cancer on a Thursday, it doesn't say which time. I would do dawn. If you can't get it on a Thursday, as long as the moon is in Cancer, you're good. But you can add on this. You write your name in the middle. Oh shit, this is horrible. Name. Then you write the following letters in order from right. So wow, Aleph, Sin. Oh yeah, this is gonna be ugly. Nine. There. And then at the top you write Bism, not Bismillah, just Bism. Ooh. Bism. This is the ugliest my handwriting has ever looked. You write you I don't even know. Can you does that even look right to you all? All right. I'm gonna say it again so that this is wow, this is aleph, this is sin, this is ain, so you can look them up and how they're supposed to look like. You write this when the moon is in, and we write this when the moon is in Cancer, with the ink that I recommended. So go and check it out, the saffron ink. Then you take the piece of paper, you get an incense burner, thurible, etc., and you're going to burn some frankincense, some myrrh, and a pinch of sugar. Please, please, when I tell you a pinch, I mean a pinch. It gets burning sugar is funky. It also gives a weird smell. But frankincense myrrh and just a pinch of sugar, and you're going to fumigate this in it. You're going to fumigate it in it. And once the incense burns out, you're going to fold the piece of paper and you're going to place it with one kernel of frankincense and two kernels of myrrh. So one kernel of frankincense, two kernels of myrrh, folded in the piece of paper, and then you place the piece of paper in a pouch of some sort and place it in your wallet or place it in your purse. And so long as it remains there, it will act as a seal of sustenance. What it does is it closes off undue expenses, allowing the money to start to accumulate. So it draws more and more money to you, and then it keeps that money to you. This is my remedy for 2026, given what we've seen with the disruption of trade, given what we've seen with the disruption of finances. I wanted to prescribe this based off of this medieval remedy because it was designed specifically for years like this to protect you so that all of you can navigate the funkiness of 2026 without having any major calamities in regards to your finances. And I hope that this will all be very useful to all of you. I wish you all a fantastic. Lizzie Sanders says, burnt sugar is the bane of my existence. You and me both, Lizzie. I'm just going to say it. When I heard the thing, I was like, yeah, a pinch, no more, because it's just not I know why. Like, I get the logics behind it, but it's like, so please, just just a couple sprinkles of sugar in that regards. Do we know much about Kanka, Cecilia? Yes, we do know a little bit about him. I mean, Kanka al-Hindi, he is a medieval astrologer that lived roughly a little bit before Abu Mansur's time. He wrote nothing down, but he was an Indic astrologer that blended Indic astrology with Islamic astrology. We believe that he may have been the source for much of the Nahu. These wise men. Many books are written in on behalf of him, even though they're not written by him. This particular working comes from about the 12th to the 13th century. Kanka is long dead by that time period. But it is attributed to him, and it's where we get many of the remedies for the falls, the planetary falls, the planetary detriments. All of them come from it. And it is clearly a mix of sort of Indic, medicine, Greco-Arabic medicine, and Islamic cosmology with the magic of names, the magic of numbers, the magic of letters, all playing a big role there. But he's a very cool figure, very cool figure. Alfalfa going ham. Glad to hear that. When the stars were joy. Good night, Jolie. Happy New Year. By family, they meant the toxic, abusive kind, I guess. Yeah, no, it's 100% true. My workplace is saying something similar. I have been waiting to leave this place. Whenever the workplace says we're one big happy family, I'm always like, are we? Are we? My curb job is like that regarding unions. They literally play an anti-union advertisement. Yeah, they don't joke around in tech when it comes to unions. I mean, that's why they've done that, right? All right, thank you all for hanging out with me on your my Nganga knows exactly what this ritual is doing. Burnt sugar, frankincense. Bismillah. Thank you, Ali. Dusk says that. Yeah, I'm really happy you're here because one of the cool things that we're going to see is like the way in which Islamic magic and West African and Congolese magic really overlap. They share a lot of really, really cool technology. And like, particularly the way in which the logic of herbs and roots and plants play a role. Really, really cool. So we're going to see definitely more and more of that. Anyways, thank you for spending your weekend before New Year's Eve with me. I hope that you all have a fantastic New Year's. If you have a lover, I hope that you make out with them on New Year's Eve. I hope that you have lots of fun and you're able to stay up late. I have a snack tray that has enticed me to come out. So I will be at an event. I'm also going to be having pomegranates tonight. A reminder for those of you that are interested in traditions, it is customary in the Islamic practice to have a little bit of honey with an apple on New Year's to bring in the sweet. Now, we generally do this on Nowruz. It's one of the Abbasid traditions. So during our Nowruz event, you'll see me take an apple and honey, but you can try it for the secular New Year as well to usher in a blessed and sweet New Year for all of you. Thank you again for hanging out. I hope you all have an amazing and fantastic 2026. We have lots of cool things planned, so definitely stay tuned. Wishing you all a best. 2026, and of course, victory over the oppressive forces that we all have to deal with. Solidarity together, my friends, and see you at the end of the year, or see you next year, actually. Bye bye, everyone.